Hello everybody, vanburman here, and welcome to another discussion video. I guess it would be a podcast, but you can see my face, so it's more like a video cast. Anyway, today's point was on discussion. A discussion on piracy, and how I feel about piracy. So, I've had a question, and want to know my views on it. So, does it boost the name of the publisher with more people playing it, even though that it is potentially, well, it would be a pirated copy, or does it harm that company or developer? Right, that's a very specific part, and it's not that easy to answer, of course. So, I'm going to start by saying my personal view on pirating digital media is that it should not be done under pretty much any circumstances. Doesn't mean I haven't done it before. It just means I don't agree with it, and I don't agree with the idea of it. I don't agree with people doing it. However, there are of course exceptions, and obviously some people may feel justified in their reason for having pirated something for whatever reason. So there is that side of things. I won't tell you what I have pirated, but the games which I have pirated, this is before I started making YouTube videos. Let's say it's about 6 years ago. I bought or already owned, just on a different platform. So I might have pirated it on my PC, but owned it on my PS3. And the other one was when I bought a game, but then they changed the release date, but it came out in America earlier. So, yeah. I don't know. There's no justification, isn't there? Those two examples are not justification, but that was when I did do it, and I wouldn't do it again for anything. So, but trying to get back to the meat of the question, does it boost the name of the publisher by more people playing it? Yes. I mean, if it's a very expensive game and people are going out and pirating it, then of course it boosts the name of the publisher, because more people get to playing it, more people like the developer. But then what about if they're someone who just like serial pirate stuff? So it's not going to matter whether they like the game or whether they like the company, because if they're going to pirate, then they're going to pirate anyway. So surely, that doesn't actually make any difference, unfortunately, for that side of things. But, there are people who will pirate a game first to see how it plays, to see whether it's in a good enough state to play, and then we'll go out and buy it. I mean, yeah, okay. That's a bit different, but, I don't know. Apparently, I read an article a while ago that said that quite a high percentage of people who pirate games actually then go and buy it. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was a lot higher than I thought it would be. It might have been something like 60%, I think. I don't remember, but it was still a really good conversion, I think. I mean, my idea of someone pirating is that they just pirate everything and then never buy the games, just leave it on their hard drive, which is probably the main thing that people associate with people who pirate, of course. But I do know people that do it like that. Of course, there are certain types of games which is more difficult to do. For example, games that require an active subscription and need to be online all the time. You can't do it with those games. But there are plenty, of course, which are single player or server multiplayer, which can be accessed just for having a working copy without actually buying the proper one. So, I think the scope for piracy is lower now, but on more independent titles it is a bit of an issue. And the reason for this is because, they're not a big company. Taking that whatever percentage hit it is of people who are going to pirate is a big chunk of what they're going to earn. I'll use an example. If you remember the game, or a game called Anodyne, I believe it went through Steam Greenlight, and it's a sort of like oldie style RPG game. It's quite an interesting concept, but what they found out that a lot of people were pirating it from the Pirate Bay, and they knew about it, and they didn't contact anyone to get it taken down. They were like, well, we appreciate that this happens. People are going to pirate our game. Which I think companies have to be realistic and realise that that is what is going to happen. But all they did is they went onto the comments and said, we understand that people are going to pirate the game and there's nothing we can do to stop it. I mean, if you get that one taken down, there'll be a link somewhere else, someone else will torrent it. It is going to happen, quite frankly. And from that, they said, here's a link to our page. I don't know exactly the full details, but I presume they probably gave them a code or something, a voucher, and that way they could actually buy the game from them for $1. So the way they were thinking about doing it is that if they made it a really small price, people are willing to pay that over actually illegally downloading the game. And then of course they have a physical copy of the game, well, not a physical copy, an actual proper copy of the game, and of course that way the developer gets something rather than nothing, which I think is a pretty fair exchange. Of course, it's a good way of dealing with it, but then you've got your legitimate customers which have paid, I can't remember how much the game is, I think it's about £6 or £7, to buy it properly. So, the legitimate people have got it for a lot more, paid a lot more for it, and then the people who are pirating it have been able to buy it at a much cheaper cost. So I'm not quite sure the balance is there, but from a business point of view, for them, it was a really good idea. And then of course, a couple of months later, it was in a charity bundle, which is where I got it from. And I had a bit of a play on it, and it's not too bad of a game, in honesty, I think it's worth playing. So yeah, that was one way of a company dealing with it. So does it harm? Of course it harms. It does harm, but the point is, any game publisher, developer will realise that there are going to be people who pirate the game. They're obviously going to factor that in when they come up with figures for how much money they're likely to make. There will be a percentage that they're going to realise will be people pirating the game, and as I say, they will have to factor that in when they do it. So it's not such a, I don't think it's such a bad thing. I don't think it's as big a problem as it used to be, purely because, as I say, of the differentiating types of games which we play, and especially as how they're policed as well. Obviously being just purely online, then you can't really pirate that as easy. But yes, I wouldn't recommend, or I wouldn't advocate piracy in the slightest. For example, with the game I'm making, I wouldn't have thought they'd be big enough to be pirated, but then again, any game that gets on Steam, as soon as you release it on Steam, it's got the potential to be pirated. Obviously, I believe it probably takes a bit more than just copying and pasting, but obviously there will be DRM free versions. But there's companies out there like GOG that prove that DRM free works. That people aren't just going to pirate, and people do want to buy the game, and they do want to support the publishers if they've made a good game. And I think that is the general overview of how gamers operate generally. But then again, if people are serial pirators, then they're serial pirators, and people are always going to try and find a way to make a game piratable, downloadable from a torrent, and people are always going to want to do it that way as well, for whatever reason they have. But a game's being more available always help publishers and developers. It just depends on each customer's individual preferences on piracy. I mean, for example, if a game sold 20,000 copies, more than 20,000 people would have played the game, because people might have pirated it, might have lent it to their friend, a friend might have come around and played it. So, there is that side of things to do with it, and of course that gets their name out there, no matter where people have bought it from, where they've illegally downloaded it from, or anything. So that side of things, it is good, but of course game development is a very big business thing, so all companies will spend money trying to make it more difficult for games to be pirated, but at the end of the day they're going to know that there's just no way they can stop their games being pirated. You know, unless they are, World of Warcraft or something like that. Something along those lines, or Diablo 3, of course, which I believe was pirated, wasn't it? Could be. I don't know. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that, I'll just basically just answer the question. So, does it boost the name of the developer with more people playing it? It definitely does. Because there are people out there, or there are a percentage of people out there that will legally download the game, and then if they like it, will go out and buy it to support the developer. Does it harm the developer? Yes, it can harm the developer, and it can help the developer. Overall, I think on balance, it's much more of an evil than it is a good, piracy of games. But I do think it has some good elements to it. One of the things I would say is that not enough companies release demos for games. I did a discussion on this a while ago about Steam not releasing enough demos, and since then they've actually released quite a few demos, like a lot more than they had in the previous time before. So maybe that's becoming a bit more of a common thing, I'm not too sure. But that way people can test out how the game works on their system, which is very important, of course, with PC gaming. Although, I don't know, with the cost of... with the parts you need to be able to play any sort of game is relatively small, less than a PlayStation 4, but if you want that high quality and you want to see how high it's going to go up on your system, then having a demo is a very good way of going about it. And I think that really will stop a lot of the people who do pirate for that reason. But then, of course, some people just want to pirate because they can't afford the game, which is another thing, and then might buy it on sale. I don't know. So, yeah. It all depends on personal point of view on it. You can use statistics all day long, and you can make it look like a good thing, make it look like a bad thing, or balance the two together and find out, draw whatever conclusion you want. But personally, my thoughts are bad. Doesn't mean I would say that someone should get locked up for doing it, and it's not policed very well, but it's a very difficult thing to police from a law's perspective, and the way it's done at the minute is by being fined. And quite frankly, if you just had a couple of pirated games on your computer, I don't really know, even if you got caught, I'm not really sure the punishment would be that severe. If you were distributing them and you were the one putting them up and modifying them, then yeah, you're in trouble. But if you're just the end user, someone who's downloaded a couple of illegal games, then it's not going to be such a big penalty to you. I shouldn't have thought. I think you get fined, do you? Something like that. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode and you've enjoyed my talking on piracy. I did gaming piracy, but obviously, of course, this stretches to films as well. But I'm a gaming channel, so I'm just going to stick with that. If you have any more topics you'd like me to discuss, put them in the comments below and I will discuss them as best as I can. I didn't do any research for this, I just took about 10 minutes having to think about specifics. And of course, there's the Anodyne case, which was actually quite a prominent case at the time. And it was something, I can't remember why I picked up on it, but still, it was very well spoken about. So, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Goodbye.